ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णम् उदच्यते।
ॐ पूर्णमिदं
पूर्णमदः पूर्णमदः
पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते।
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते।
ॐ ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत्
ॐ ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत्
तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथा मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनम्।
तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथा
तेन त्यक्तेन
तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथा मा गृधः कस्य स्निग्धनम्।
कुर्वन्नेवेह कर्माणि जिजीविषेच्छतगुं समाः।
कुर्वन्नेवेह कर्माणि जिजेविषेच्छतहं समाः।
एवं त्वयि नान्यथेतोऽस्ति न कर्म लिप्यते नरे।
एवं त्वयि नान्यतोऽस्ति न कर्म
आह,
लिप्यते।
आह, एवं त्वयि नान्यथेतोऽस्ति
एवं त्वयि नान्यथेतोऽस्ति न कर्म लिप्यते नरे।
असुर्यानामते लोका अन्धेन तमसावृताः।
असुर्यानामते लोका अन्धेन तमसा वृताः।
तांस्ते प्रेत्याभिगच्छन्ति ये के चात्महनो जनाः।
तांस्ते प्रत्याभिगच्छन्ति
प्रेत्याभि तांस्ते प्रेत्याभिगच्छन्ति
तांस्ते प्रेत्याभिगच्छन्ति ये के चात्महनो जनाः।
अनेजदेकं मनसो जवीयो नैनद्देवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वमर्षत्।
திருப்பி ரிப்பீட் பண்ண முடியுமாங்களா?
சரி பிரேக் பண்றேன். அநேஜத் ஏகம் மனசோ ஜவியோ
अनेजदेकं मनसो जवीयो
नैनद्देवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वम् अर्षत्।
नैनद्देवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वमर्षत्।
तद्धावतोऽन्यानत्येति तिष्ठत्
तद्धावतोऽन्यानत्येति तिष्ठत्
तस्मिन्नपो मातरिष्वा दधाति।
तस्मिन्नपो मातरिष्वा दधाति।
तदेजति तन्नैजति तद्दूरे तद्वन्तिके।
तदैजति तन्नैजति तद्दूरे तद्वन्तिके।
तदन्तरस्य सर्वस्य तदु सर्वस्यास्य बाह्यतः।
तदन्तरस्य सर्वस्य तदु सर्वस्याय बाह्यतः।
तद अंतरस्य सर्वस्य तदु सर्वस्यास्य बाह्यतः।
तदन्तरस्य सर्वस्य तदु सर्वस्यास्य बाह्यतः।
यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्येवानुपश्यति।
यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्येवानुपश्यति।
सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं ततो न विजुगुप्सते।
सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं तथो न विजुगुप्सते। गुप्सते
विजुगुप्सते।
विजुगुप्सते।
Okay, we saw till there last session. Okay, இன்னைக்கு வந்து we'll check this out. यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः।
आत्मैवाभूद्विजानतः।
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः।
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः।
यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः
आत्मैवाभूद्विजानतः
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः.
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः.
चंद्राजी இது ஒரு தடவை ரிப்பீட் பண்றீங்களா இத?
பண்றேன் ஜி, பண்றேன்.
यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः.
நான் இது வரேன், இது இது எடுத்து
இங்கிலீஷ்ல பாருங்க இல்லைன்னா आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः
आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः.
एकस्वम् अनुपश्यतः.
एकत्वम्
अनुपश्यतः.
திரும்ப ரிப்பீட் பண்ணலாம். यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि
आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः
आत्मैवाभूत विजानतः
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
तत्र को मोहकः शोक
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः.
एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः.
வெரி குட். ஸோ நம்ம போன வாரம் போன செஷன் வரைக்கும் 6 வரைக்கும் பார்த்தோம். ஹரியோம் மாமா மாமி நமஸ்காரம். சத்யா ஹரியோம். ஹரியோம். ஸோ 6 வரைக்கும் பார்த்தோம். ஸோ 6 and 7 ஆர் வெரி ரிலேட்டட். இந்த மந்த்ராஸ் ரெண்டுமே. இது வரைக்கும் நம்ம பார்த்தது, if you I just want to, without looking at the text, I want us to recall 1, 2, 3 we saw. One was Iśāvāsya idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. So first one was about describing the Isha, the grand vision that you carry of Isha. Idam sarvam ella edathilum irukar அப்படிங்கற ஒரு vision, grand vision that you establish within you. The second one was kurvanneveha karmani, which means the second one you're saying you have to keep doing your duty. So the first one was nivritti marga, second one was pravritti marga. That is what we said, correct? The second one, those who are not able to renounce, tena tyaktena bhunjitha, that is the first verse, first mantra. So if you are not able to renounce entirely everything that you're doing, even your desires, then the second mantra says it's all right, continue to do what you need to do, what you want to do, continue doing, and do it with 100% involvement in it. We have to differentiate between attachment and involvement. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhuhu mate sangostva akarmani. Do not attach yourself to akarmani. Inaction, don't attach yourself to inaction, which means Lord has told I don't have to do anything. Anyways, karma is not going to lead me to moksha, so I don't have to do anything. That is not the resultant. That is not the that's not the outcome of that statement. The outcome of saying that karma is not going to lead you to jnana or moksha doesn't mean that you don't have to do karma, because you inevitably do karma. And because you anyways do karma, do the right kind of karma. That is what they keep saying. When you're anyways having to do karma, you have to breathe, you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to walk from one place to the other. You have to take care of your family, your children, your parents, your office, your work. You have to do it. If you're in a situation where you have to do it, then they're saying how to do it. Right? Nobody prescribes what to do. What they are prescribing is how to do it. Right? So the whole prescription is how, which means, so the second one is pravrutti marga, which means I am living in this world, but yet I want to achieve the highest goal that the rishis and the munis and the devatas are also aspiring for. Moksha. Devatas also have to come down to Bhuloka to attain moksha. Because in the Devaloka, for them to attain moksha, they have to go through this whole process of self-introspection, Vedanta, understanding and all that. So for them, for every living being that we know in the 14 lokas, all of them want to go through this process of Atma Vichara to attain to moksha. So that highest knowledge we are seeking. And we are seeking how? By doing day-to-day work. So now I am doing everything on my daily, whatever has been tasked to me, I am doing that. Yet my ideals are so lofty. Hey, there's a statement saying, Jitna chadar utna hi pair phailao appdin solluva. Yetna, idu Tamil enna solluva? எவ்வளோ நீளமோ போர்வை எவ்வளோ நீளமோ கால் அவ்வளோதான் ஸ்ட்ரெச் பண்ணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்றதுக்கு, டு சே தட் வாட் இஸ் யுவர் கேப்பபிலிட்டி, only that much you must aspire. You must aspire only that which you are capable of அப்படின்னு சொல்றோம். That is what is usually said. But in the spiritual field, you are never told that. You are told you can aspire for the highest. You can aspire for moksha, which is aspired by devatas, kinnaras, rakshasas, yakshas, manushyas, everybody, nagas, every kind of being that you can think of, they are aspiring for this highest moksha, liberation. The same thing you are also aspiring, which means your aspiration is so lofty, but your actions are so material and so minimal, menial. So there is this disconnect, which is what we carry. The problem that we have many times, we give up on this path, is because we think I am not suited for that kind of a lofty ideal. எனக்கு அது ஒத்து வராதுப்பா, அதெல்லாம் இது பெரியவாள்லாம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி we give up. Many times we give up thinking that that is not an aspiration for me. That is an aspiration for greater beings. And which is why Bhagavan had to take so many avatars and so many scriptures in so many forms, in the form of the Guru, in the form of Krishna himself, and so many different forms he had to come to show that no, it is possible even for you. Even for you. There is a story of Narada asking Bhagavan, who is the greatest devotee? Many of you must have heard this story. He asks with pride, because full time 24/7 he goes Narayana, Narayana. So he is asking with pride, saying that he is not asking who's your greatest devotee. He's telling him that I am your greatest devotee, right? So he's going with that kind of an attitude. Then Krishna says, no, there is this one guy who is living in that village, in that in a town, who is my greatest devotee அப்படின்னு சொல்றாரு. Then this actually puts Narada off. He's insulted. That 24/7 I am telling your name, thinking of you. And then he says, okay, go and meet this person and come. One day you just see the activities this person does, and then you come back. So Narada goes and spends it in incognito. Without being seen, he spends time with this person. This person is a normal villager who is taking care of his field. He's a farmer, he's taking care of his field and his family, and he's got a large family to feed. So he sits with him. Narada watches him from a distance, and he says, morning he gets up, the first thing he does is he sits up and he says, Om Namo Narayana, or he spends 5 minutes thinking of the Lord. 5 minutes. And then he gets up and then does the rest of the duty. He starts getting ready for the day, and then he's got his wife, his wife's family, his own family, his parents, his children, all of them. It's a chaotic household, and he is the person who's earning for the household. And then he then does all the things. He takes care of, he goes and meets his parents, he namaskaram pannittu, then wife kitta pesittu, pasangalukku ella paakradhu paatittu, he does everything that is required, and then goes to the field, does the work, toils through the day, does everything, comes back in the evening, again spends time with the family, does all that he needs to do and all that. Ellarum paduthuna appuram after everybody is gone to sleep, then he goes to sleep, and before going to sleep he spends another 5 minutes sitting and thinking Hari Hari Narayana Narayana. That's all he does, and he sleeps off. And then Narada comes back and reports this to Narayana, reports this to Vishnu. And he says, this is what he does. He only thinks about you twice a day. So what is the big deal? Then Krishna or Vishnu calls Narada and says, come here. You carry this pot of oil. So he gives him a pot of oil which is filled up to the brim with oil. And tells him, carry it from here to there without a drop falling off from the pot, from the vessel. He carries it and goes all the way, and then comes back, and he proudly says, I've brought the whole vessel of oil so beautifully without a single drop spilling off. Then Krishna asks him, now while you carried the pot and brought it back, how many times did you think of me? Okay. And he says, Enna valayata irukku Krishna, what are you talking about? How is it possible? My mind was completely on the oil. I had to pay attention on the oil while carrying it and bringing it back. So Krishna says, I gave you a task for 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, you were not able to think of me because your mind was on the oil. Think of this man who is burdened with so many things on a daily basis. And yet he takes out time to think for me. He is my greatest devotee. So, actually people who are in the Grihastha Ashrama, when I was younger, I used to feel going into sannyasa is a great thing. Of course, it's a great thing. You need a different kind of prarabdha and a blessing for that. It's absolutely great. But I a lot of times feel being in the Grihastha Ashrama, also you're graced and blessed in many ways. Because when you're left to yourself and all you have to do is think about God all the time, you will definitely think about other things. Correct? Everything is given to you, everything is taken care. Now you're telling, okay, all you have to do is think about God. Will we think about God the whole day? We will think about other things. Now, when I'm given so many other things to do, now I think about God, the impact of that is much more. That is what this story delivers, and that is what is told. Kali Yugattala, or whatever this Yuga, Grihastha Ashrama in that way is a great blessing, because you can learn a lot of things about yourself, about relationships, about God, about people, about the world, and yet aspire for moksha. And doing this, while you're doing this, when you're busy doing activity, you're able to think about God, you're thinking about His glories, you're bringing your mind back again and again to this. That is the greatness. That is the greatness. That is when you are, the benefit that we carry because of that is much greater. So a lot of us, we should be thankful that we are in the Grihastha. And we have some activities. Otherwise, we'll end up doing something else. We'll be whiling away our times. Or we may be, in fact, there is another story. I don't know if you've heard of Shri M. There's this, one of the modern gurus, Shri M. he talks about he encountered a sannyasi, an age-old sannyasi, when he was young. While he was doing his search, he came across a sannyasi, and the sannyasi was old. And he says the sannyasi was not looking bright and full of life. He was looking sad. So Shri M went and asked him, "What happened, Swamiji? Why are you so sad?" He said, "I took up sannyas wanting to pursue liberation without clearing off, without attempting to clear off all the desires and conditionings that I'm carrying, that was filled in me. I escaped from what I had to take up to sannyas, and now I have taken up sannyas and I cannot go back, but yet those desires and those aspirations that are there in me haven't died entirely, so I'm stuck." So he says the only way for me to release myself is now go die, and maybe I am born again with the ability to clear off all of this in a much better way. So a lot of times taking up to sannyas is a risky thing if it does not come with maturity. It should come with a natural progression or evolution or maturity that happens within us. Otherwise, we may be in a position where you have taken it up, but yet our minds are not in that. Your mind is not able to settle down or calm down. Like, for example, those who had come for the Kedar Badri Yatra, we had met this Swami Sakshat Kritananda. If you see that person, you know he's well established in the sannyasa and well established, because you know there is nothing that is erupting in him. So when you know that there have been people we see people who have been successful sannyasis, but there are many who have not been successful. So renunciation, trying to renounce while we are in grahastha, while we are in dambatyam, while we are in social life, is the best form of spiritual sadhana. So pravrutti marga kurvanne veha karmani jijivishe chatagum samaha evam tvai nanyathe tosti na karma lipyate nare. This is the first and the second. Third one is asurya namate loka. So he's saying, if you don't follow the first or the second, I cannot help you. You will have to go into the world of ignorance. This is what the Rishi of the Upanishad says. Then fourth and the fifth and the sixth, it talks about the fourth and the fifth talks about the nature of Atman. Aneja dekam manaso javiyo. Being in one place, it does not go anywhere. It being in one place, it moves faster than the mind. It is everywhere. It can go faster than the indriyas. Before the indriyas reach to a place, this is already there. So it describes it in form of paradoxes to show that this particular Isha or the Atma that we're talking about is not a substance, it's not material, it is not a thing, it is no thing. It is not nothing, it is no thing. So that is the fourth shloka. The fifth mantra is Tadejati Tannai Jati, same thing. It is saying it does not move, it moves. It is very far, yet it is very near. It is inside everything, it is outside everything. Which means this Atma, this consciousness is all pervading. Vyomavat vyapta dehaya dakshinamurtaye namaha. Vyomavat, like space, it is everywhere. Can you point out, at least in our experience of the world, can you say that there is no space anywhere? Space is everywhere. Space is also there in between two molecules, in between two atoms, even within the atom, between the nucleus and the proton, between the nucleus and the electron, there is space. Space is everywhere. So this is like that. Consciousness is all pervading. That is what this mantra says, fifth mantra. Sixth mantra is Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatona vijugupsate. The one, the seer, the rishi, or the Jivan Mukta, he who sees everyone in him and himself in everything. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam. In all bhutas, in all beings, he sees himself. So both ways. When I see something, I see this Atma is there also. That is one. The second is that which I am seeing is actually inside me. It is not outside of me. So when I get this vision, na vijugupsate, he does not hate anything. He does not dislike anything or hate anything. That is the mantra 6. Mantra 7 here is an extension of that. He says, Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut vijanatah. Yasmin, in whom, sarvani bhutani, all the entities, atmaiva bhut vijanatah. Atma eva abhut. Atma eva abhut. Atma eva abhut means Atma alone is there, exists. The one who knows this, vijanatah. So, yasmin sarvani bhutani atma eva abhut vijanatah. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atma eva abhut vijanatah. Tatra, therein, therefore, there, ko mohaha, kaha mohaha. Ko comes because of the sandhi. Okay, it is kaha. Kaha mohaha. Which means, what is delusion? Kaha shoka. What is sorrow? Ekatvam anupashyatah. He perceives ekatvam, oneness. Everything is one. And I like this particular imagery. I just put it here for us to visualize the world like this, right? So assume this is you, the person standing on the right. When you're seeing everything, everyone, every being, you can see your Lord, your Ishta, your Guru, whoever, in all of this. So, Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atma Eva. So, either you can see your own self. When you have the experience of the self as this that is, although appearing within me, it is appearing within me, but it's not contained within me, but it feels as though it is appearing within me. That Atma, that self, that consciousness, when I realize it within myself, then I realize that it's the same essence. It is the same tattva that is existing everywhere else. It is the same tattva. Correct? Either we perceive it that way, or we perceive it in a way to say, okay, Narayana, Krishna, Shiva, Ambal, Devi, she is here, she is in my heart. She is in the center of my being. He is in the center of my being. The same tattva, the same Devi, Ambal, Krishna, Vishnu, Narayana, Shiva, Dakshinamurti, Guru, the same entity. That entity is in everything. The same Allah, the same Christ. Whatever we perceive here, the same thing is everywhere. Now, when I talk to somebody else, now imagine if you just meditate upon this for a little while, and then when I open up my eyes and I look at my wife, my child, my helper at my home, or the people I work with, the people I meet, if I carry this along with me, and when I meet everybody and I perceive them as an amsha of myself, as a part of my own being, because what is pulsating here is the same thing that is operating there. Imagine how our interaction will be. Imagine the ability to be compassionate in the world. You don't have to teach compassion to anybody. What you talk about karuna, why do saints have karuna, unconditional karuna towards everybody? It's not because they are sitting and thinking, okay, now today I want to have compassion towards everyone. No. All they perceive is that which is here is there, and it's established in their understanding. They don't have to remind themselves. Now we have to remind ourselves, because as part of sadhana, we have to constantly remind ourselves. But once it's established in our understanding, just perceive just imagine what will the condition of that jnani be, that jnani's condition be. When he opens his eyes, he comes out of his samadhi or his dhyana or his sadhana. When he sees everything as an amsha of himself, how will you get angry with somebody? How will you not be compassionate with someone? So, this particular ability to be connected, this ekatvam, this oneness comes from this feeling. Now, there is another way of looking at this. Okay. Now, suppose I am not a person of bhakti. Okay, I am a person of logic. If you look at what, like for instance, Jiddu Krishnamurti talks about. Jiddu Krishnamurti, those who are familiar, he doesn't talk about bhakti. He doesn't talk about my Ishta Devata or the Brahman or anything like that. He suggests, now look at everybody else around you. The things that you carry within you. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. The Shadripus. Do you see people around you carrying the same? Generally, everybody. Everybody around you has anger, has desire, has fear, wants to acquire, is unsatisfied. So, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, all of these, you perceive, when you see people around you, they are also the same. Suffering. Do you see people around you? Everybody happy-go-lucky and joyfully jumping around, and only you are suffering? No. They are also suffering. Attachments. Are you the only one having attachments and everybody is extremely well? No. Everybody is having attachments. When you realize that the psychological conditionings and the problems that you have, everybody else has, then compassion rises. Naturally, compassion has to rise. The problem that we fall into is because we think we are the most in suffering. Suffering la number highest, grace la number lowest. We always establish ourselves this way. Either that is the state of depression we are in, saying I am the one suffering the most and I have the least grace, or we go to the other end of superiority. We say, I am the one who carries the most amount of grace. I am the one who is graced with everything. So you're either superior, you feel superior of yourself, because of which you ill-treat others, or you feel inferior about yourself, because of which you always think you're unfair, you're being dealt unfairly. So in the fairness, we always seek fairness in the world, correct? We always seek fairness. Is the world fair to me? Nobody understands me. I am suffering and struggling in the world. Nobody understands me. We are stuck in this. So Isn't everybody else stuck in the same problem? All I'm saying is, maybe you think you're stuck in this. Now look around and see everybody else is stuck in the same problem. How many people around you see are in established in Atmajnana? Even in the satsangs that we are in, not everybody is, when you see everybody else around you, even in a satsanga, you will see that everybody has the same aspirations, same desires, same motivation, same set of sufferings, similar set of sufferings, not necessarily the same, but similar set of sufferings. Some are suffering physically, some are suffering mentally, some are suffering emotionally. Suffering is there. Suffering is an impediment in your spiritual sadhana. It constantly impedes you from doing anything that you want to do spiritually. Go beyond suffering. So, Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmanyeva Anupashyati. This is one way of looking at it. If you are able to bring in that Ishta within you and see the same Ishta everywhere, then naturally there is a compassion that will rise. Naturally, you will even even somebody who is not treating you well, you will always think that from a point of view, from his point of view, you will see that he's suffering. He's suffering because of which he doesn't know how else to do what he is doing. That is the way he knows to respond. That is the way he knows how to deal with people. So you will start thinking about the other person and not judging. Judging is okay, so that you are careful. See, also in the spiritual sadhana, you need to be careful with whom you want to associate, with whom you don't want to. I am not saying that if somebody is not treating you well, you have to go and sit with him and then get beaten up. Not like that. You have to judge people to understand, okay, Vanda, it doesn't work out, so let me keep my distance. But at the same time, also understand he is suffering. Because everybody does something. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. For his own joy and satisfaction, everybody does what they are doing. But it's just that they find this joy and happiness in different ways. And some of those ways happen to be harmful for others. That is all. But otherwise, so this compassion develops. Okay. So this shloka is going back to this again. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmanyeva atmaiva bhut vijanatah. The one who knows that this atma is in everything. Tatra ko moha kaha shoka. Where is moha? Where is delusion? Delusion, when you perceive something as what it really is not. When your mind, delusion, or another example, suppose you go to a movie and you see things in the movie and you feel very sad about what's happened in the movie. And you start crying. And you keep crying. Movie is over, you still keep crying. You come home, you tell your parents you're crying. You tell your children you're crying. You keep crying. The movie is over, you're still crying. ஐயோ எப்படி பாவம் எப்படி கஷ்டப்பட்டா ஐயோ இப்படி சொல்லிட்டு அழுதுட்டு வேதனைப்பட்டுட்டு. That's delusion. என்ன பண்ணுவோம் வீட்டில் இருக்கிறவ wife will come and give you a tight slap. போறோம் நிறுத்துங்க, இந்த டிராமா போறோம் நிறுத்துங்க. Delusion, you don't know when delusion can take over you. Your mind will start believing things. So when there is clarity of thought, when there is clarity of recognition that this Atma, this thing that I am, this consciousness that is within me, you give it any name. Okay. You give it consciousness. You want to look at it as Brahman. You want to look at it as Isha. You want to look at it as Devi. Devi Upasakas will meditate upon Devi's form. They'll say this body, this whole being is Devi's form. Devi is operating from inside me. All that is great, but you have to extend it outside. The same Devi is also operating there. You can't walk outside saying, I am Devi, you are my slave. Appadi illa. See, these are checks and balances we need to keep in mind. When we are doing sadhana, we should feel good about ourselves. We should feel good about ourselves. But now think, if you feel good about yourself at the cost of somebody else, then you're losing spiritual understanding. Feeling good about yourself for somebody who's depressed and he comes onto the spiritual path, the first steps are important to feel good about yourself. But then you shouldn't go to the other extreme where you feel so good about yourself that you point out as others as miserable. So you should notice that the feeling good about yourself is coming from the fact that you have now identified yourself with an higher ideal. You have identified with yourself with a higher entity. The same entity is also operating in everything around you. So, this particular recognition is important. So, tatra ko mohaha kaha shoka. Where is then sorrow? So, there's no more sorrow because you've realized that happiness is not in the objects. Once you've now recognized that everything around you is Isha, then there is no dejection, there is no rejection. There is an action that's coming from there is the Lord's action. There is an event that is occurring, that is the Lord's desire that it happens this way. Yellam avan cheyal appdin solluvoம்ல நம்ம. That is a term, but that's a very profound term. Yellam avan cheyal is when you say it with a true understanding, then your actions will show that you're really believing in that. Ellame avan seyal. Everything is his doing. So then there is no sorrow. Sorrow comes when there is a mismatch between your aspiration and the actual reality. But here there is no gap between the two. Because now your aspirations have now turned itself to say that I aspire to see Lord in everything that is happening. My aspiration is not I want to go to the moon, but I'm here stuck in earth. That's not the aspiration anymore. Now your aspiration has turned itself now. Aspiration has now become what? Now I want to see the Lord in and through everything. So when that aspiration becomes that, then your aspiration has become reality. Your aspiration is now come down to the level of reality. And then there is no gap between your aspiration and reality. And hence there is no sorrow. There's no mismatch. Ekatvam anupashyatah. This ekatvam, this oneness that comes there. Oneness is in different ways. This oneness happens because of I see everybody like me, that oneness. There is also oneness between my aspiration and what is. Correct? Whenever there is the moment, imagine, when do you gain happiness? When do you gain satisfaction? When what you aspire for and what happens is one and the same. Okay, so what we try to do, we keep our aspiration here and we try to move the reality to this place. For a spiritual sadhana, sadhaka, you bring your aspiration to the level of reality. You achieve the same joy. We started off saying you must have a lofty ideal of moksha. That's what we started off saying today. Now we are saying you bring that aspiration down to the level of reality, which means where is moksha? liberation, it is right here, right now. இங்கேயே இருக்கு, இப்போவே இருக்கு, உடனேயே இருக்கு. அது எங்கேயோ இருக்குன்னு போய் தேடுறதுனால தான் there is suffering also. Even in the spiritual sadhaka, for a spiritual sadhaka, there is suffering because the whole process is அது எங்கேயோ இருக்கு. It is somewhere else and I am trying to attain to it. So having this highest lofty ideal of moksha or liberation, which is the highest, now we are saying it is here right now, it is operating right now in this reality. And when we realize that there's equality between the two, the highest aspiration and the reality, then there is no moha, no shoka. Ekatvam anupashyatah. There is perception of oneness in the way you perceive yourself, the way you perceive Ishvara, and you perceive the Jagat. Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat, Aikyam. The oneness that you perceive everywhere. Yeah. So that is the 7th mantra. So we will close with the last mantra. Chandraji solrela. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam.
Om Purnamadav Purnamidam.
Purnāt Purnamudachyate.
Purnāt Purnamudachyate.
Purnasya Purnamadaya.
Purnasya Purnamadaya.
Purnameva Vasishyate.
Purnameva Vasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyirva Buddhyatmana va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanayeti Samarpayami Sadashivayeti Samarpayami Jagadambikayeti Samarpayami Sadgurunathayeti Samarpayami. Hari Om Tat Sat Gurubhyo Namah.